Hello and welcome. I'm so glad that you're here with us today for our live Q&A, Ask an OT with me, Katrina Erickson. I'm an OT, and I'm going to be answering your questions today. All the questions that you've always wanted to ask an OT about child development. So before we jump into that and start answering your questions, I want to tell you a little bit about me. My name is Katrina Erickson, and I'm an occupational therapist. I've been an OT for about 30 years. And the majority of my career, about 20 years of that, I have been focusing on a specialty in handwriting development and other school-related skill development for children. I'm also an occupational therapist that presents. I'm a national presenter for Learning Without Tears, the company that's hosting this live event today for you guys. So if you've ever been to one of our trainings or workshops, go ahead and hit that kind of heart symbol that you have. I'm real good at this. And let us know that you've been to one of our workshops before and that you love what we do. We love sharing educational information with you, training, and helping children to develop to the fullest of their abilities. So we're going to go ahead and get started. And what I would like for you to do is go ahead in the comment section down below. Go ahead and put in your questions that you've always wanted to ask an OT. And add where you're joining us from tonight. We would love to hear where you're from, and if you're supporting a particular grade level student, go ahead and put that in the comments. Whether you're a parent or a teacher, it will help me if I can scroll through and look through those as I'm answering questions today to kind of be more specific towards some of your grade levels that you are working with and supporting at home. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started with answering questions. And earlier this week, just a few days ago, when we posted that we were going to do this live event, we asked for some questions to be sent in. And Allison from Maryland sent in a question to us, and she asked, how can I support my left-handed child at home with writing development and scissor skills? So Allison, this one goes out for you. Your child's growing up in a right-handed world. Am I right? This is a right-handed world, and if you're a lefty, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you're a lefty, give me a thumbs up. And give me a comment. What was the toughest thing for you growing up learning in a right-handed world? And then we'll go ahead and start with the scissor part of Allison's question. Allison asked about lefties and scissors. Your first thing that you want to do, Allison, is get your child a pair of left-handed scissors. This is an important thing because right and left-handed scissors are not created equally. A left-handed scissor is made mechanically for the left hand. I don't know if you've ever watched a lefty try to cut with a right-handed pair of scissors, but when they try to cut and bring the blades together, the mechanics of how that scissor was put together doesn't work with the left hand very well. And so the blades kind of separate from one each other, and the paper will actually kind of fold over. Instead of cutting, they'll bend the paper. And that's the reason for that. So a left-handed pair of scissors is meant to work with the mechanics of the left hand. So that's an important concept. The other one is that when a left-handed student tries to use a right-handed pair of scissors, they can't see the line that they're cutting on because the blade comes down and blocks it. It's meant for a right-handed cutter. Not to say that lefties can't somehow learn how to use right-handed scissors. It's just going to be more challenging for them. So get your child a pair of left-handed scissors. Now, my next few tips for you guys as an OT on scissor skills will work for both right-hand cutters and left-hand cutters. And my first tip is thumbs up. All right, kind of that Facebook, we give a thumbs up for things. Thumbs up for both hands. The hand that is going to be holding the scissors needs to have the thumb position up, and the hand that's going to be holding the paper they'll be cutting on needs to have the thumb up as well, okay? And I like to use a strategy to help young children really learn this skill well by either drawing a smiley face or putting a sticker on their thumbnail so that when they are cutting, they should see both of those, whether they're holding the paper or they are moving the scissors. Now, another tip for you, I've got my scissors right here on my desk, and I put a piece of colorful tape on the thumb hole for my children. So when they're young and learning to cut, you want to make sure they know where that thumb goes, that they're holding those scissors correctly. So just another quick tip is to make sure that you mark the scissors for them correctly. There's also a really great way to figure out whether or not you've got a pair of right-handed or left-handed scissors in your hand. So if you have a pair of left-handed scissors in your classroom, in your home, wherever you happen to be, just Google how to tell the difference between a right and a left-handed pair of scissors. It's fun. You'll find out exactly how to figure out which ones are right-handers and which ones are left-handers. So if you happen to have a pair of lefty scissors in your house, you can quickly figure out which ones those are by Googling and figuring out how to place it, and you'll see the pattern for it. It's pretty genius, the way that they do the mechanics of that. Okay, so that goes to the thumbs. My other tip for you guys is making sure that you start cutting with younger kids, and then also older kids that are struggling with cutting skills. Start with thicker, heavier materials first before you progress them to paper. Paper can be really challenging for children to cut. So you might start with snipping straws, something that's stiff. You can also roll out Play-Doh or dough and have them snip that off as well, so that they're practicing on just opening and closing the blades of those scissors. Now, once you progress to cutting on paper, start with heavier papers first. Cardstock, index cards, magazine inserts are great, as well as some of the mailers that you get in your mail. You can have those for good cutting practice as well. And always start with wide, bold lines before you move on to narrower lines. And that goes for any type of cutting. You'll want to start with straight lines first, and then move on into curved lines, and finally into shapes. But always follow that pattern of bolder into more thin lines to help work on their control. Lastly, for cutting, I just want to let you know that scissor skills can be challenging. There's a lot that's available online. You can check out Pinterest and different places for downloads for cutting, but make cutting fun for your kids, and make sure that not only are they learning to hold their scissors correctly with their thumb up and hold the paper with their thumb up, but they also need to learn how to move the hand that they're holding the paper with up as the scissors are going up the page. Some kids hang on to the paper down here at the bottom. They start the cutting line and they never move this helper hand right here. And they just keep on cutting, and they end up pushing the scissors so hard that they rip the paper. This hand should progress holding the paper as the scissors move up the page on a line or around a shape. So you can use stickers or a crayon or a marker to mark little parts for them to move that helper hand to hold that paper as they progress the scissors and do the cutting. All right, so if you're just joining us and you just jumped on the live, this is a live Q&A session with Ask an OT, and it's with me. I'm Katrina Erickson. I'm an OT, and we just got through talking about scissor skills. Now, if you're joining us and you think you know somebody who would benefit from watching this broadcast, tag them in the comments section below, because we would love for them to be able to catch this rebroadcast and be able to learn all the great tips and tricks that we've got to share with you today. So go ahead and do that for me. All right, now we're going to move on and talk about the other part of Allison's question, which was lefties and handwriting, and being able to support a lefty in writing. I've got a few tips for you, Allison, that are specific to lefties. And if you are a lefty, make sure you let me know that you're a lefty. Give me a thumbs up if you're a lefty. And here's some tips for you if you are supporting a left-handed writer at home. When you're supporting lefties at home or at school, one of the common problems that they have is they get what's called a hooked grasp. You may see this in your own children, you may see it at school. And why do they do this? Why do they get that kind of hooked grasp? Lefties will get that hooked grasp because traditional downloads and worksheets and papers that we give them to write on, we ask them to copy words. We ask them to copy letters or numbers. Often those letters and numbers are going to be over here on the left-hand side of the page. So I'm trying to mirror this for you guys since we're on Facebook. I don't think it flips it around for me. So on the left-hand side of the paper, the words would be written here. When a lefty puts their hand down to write in this area, they end up covering up those words that they're supposed to be writing. So how do they see the word list that is right here? They hook their wrist up, okay, so that they're not covering it. They end up hooking it up so that they can see it. What we teach in our workshops and trainings is to make an extra copy of that sheet and put it on the right-hand side of their desk or table so they have a clear view of those lists. But Allison, I'm going to bet right now in our situation that we're in, you don't want to be printing two of everything for your left-handed son or daughter at home. So a real quick tip for you right now is if they're working on worksheets and downloads that have that list along the left-hand side of the page, just quickly take the scissors and cut that word list off. Put it over onto the right-hand side of the page, tape it, in place so that your son or your daughter will have a good, clear view on the right-hand side what the words or the letters are that they're being asked to write. So if you're liking these tips and you want us to keep doing these types of things, our plan is to come to you live and keep doing these broadcasts. Let us know. If you like some of these tips, give me that good surprise face. How many of you didn't know about that quick strategy for the hooked wrist? Now, other things about lefties that you need to know is this. Lefties will also tend to slant their paper a little bit more than a right-handed person. If you're a right-handed person, the top right-hand corner of your paper should be higher than the left. And if you're left-handed, it should be the opposite. The left-hand side should be up higher. So you'll slant your paper that way. The other thing about lefties is there are a few letters that they will make differently than a right-handed person. Think about the middle of a capital A, the top of a capital T, the middle of a capital H. How about when they cross and make the last stroke and they cross a lowercase t or cross a lowercase f? Those are what we call horizontal strokes. And for a right-handed person, they will pull that stroke into their hand. So they will move from left to right across the page to make that horizontal stroke. But a lefty will do it differently. A lefty will pull from right to left. They will pull into their hand as well, just like this. Now they'll do those for all of those horizontal strokes. But there's three letters that are exceptions to this rule, and those are capital letter E, capital letter L, and capital letter F. I always remember the word ELF for the exception. Capital E, L, and F, they'll push those horizontal strokes. So I hope you like these tips for your lefties, and we're going to go ahead and move on. If you can still hear me loud and clear, give me a thumbs up so I know you're still with me. And we're going to go ahead and move on to our next question. Now, just a reminder, if you're just joining in with us, post your question of what you would like for children, or what you would like to know from an OT about children and developing skills. And give me a shout out. Where are you listening from? So I see people here. I've got some Nancy from Arizona. I've got Jay from Philadelphia. Welcome, guys. Hi, Emily. I'm glad you're here. Thank you for your question. I've got a question here that comes in from Jay, but this Jay is from he's from Pennsylvania. And so Jay Colburn, you're from Philadelphia. So I got kind of off on that. That's two P's. But Jay from Pennsylvania wants to know, how can I support my child at home while their school is closed? Jay, this is a really important question. And hopefully most of you have already done this. If you haven't, start thinking about ways you can do this. Create a schedule for your kids. Even as adults, we need schedules. Our kids really need a schedule. And if you're working with young pre-K kids or kindergarten kids or even young first graders, adding a picture to that schedule to help them see the meaning behind the words that are on their schedule so they know what to expect, what's coming up. And on this schedule, I want you to really be thoughtful about how you're going to build in some movement breaks for your kids. I don't know about you guys, but I don't like sitting at a desk for a long period of time. I like to have a change of scenery. I like to be able to get up and move about, and your kids need that as well. As a matter of fact, they really, really need gross and fine motor work as well. So look for ways to add in movement breaks for your kids. Now, these can be simple as doing a bear walk into another room to get the supplies they might need for the next activity. For older kids, they could do wall push-ups, they could do regular push-ups, jumping jacks. You could set up a kind of movement obstacle course for them to move from one place to the next. Who says you have to sit at a table or at a desk to do your schoolwork? Why can't you sit on the floor in front of the coffee table? There's lots of different positions kids can be in. They can stand at a counter and have a standing desk. You can build in movement breaks with music. Have a dance off for them. Let them have a transition time. Think about if you aren't having opportunities for your kids to get outside as much, finding a place, maybe a hallway in your hallway where maybe they can toss a small stuffed animal back and forth, either to their sibling or to you, so they're working on good eye-hand coordination. Doing drawing and coloring activities, but instead of doing it on a tabletop, how about taping that to a window for a new experience and using their bodies in different ways. And don't forget to give them an opportunity to do some quiet time too in their days. Give them a time, maybe a 10 or 15-minute break where it is their own preferred activity they get to choose. Or maybe the lights get to be turned down low and they get to get under blankets. Look at what your child needs sensory-wise and motor-wise and try to build those into their schedules around their academic calendar. All right, so if you're loving some of these ideas, make sure that you give me a heart symbol. Last but not least, my number one tip for you supporting kids at home, especially with schedules, is use a timer. Use a timer. Somebody told me this a long time ago. Set a timer for a child so that they know when things are going to end. You know, they don't want to be sitting for a long period of time with no end in sight. So use a timer, let them know that something's going to end. We have our phones that we can use. We have a good old-fashioned egg timer. If you have one of those genius home devices that you can set some transition times in for your kids, you can use one of those such as Alexa or the Google items that you can have automated in your class, or not your class, in your home. Those are great. So if you like the timer idea, thumbs up, and set timers for your breaks as well. Those movement breaks, we don't want them going on forever. Sometimes you may need to, depending on your work session. So we will go ahead and move on to the next question. I did mention some of the engagement that I talked about with multisensory by having them do things. You know, that's something that we do naturally in our programs, our curriculums for preschool, for pre-K readiness, for kindergarten readiness, for our printing and cursive programs, as well as our keyboarding program. We holistically build in multisensory learning, movement, music, engaging videos to capture their attention, as well as reinforce content and concepts with them. If you want to know more about our curriculum and things, I want you to go take a look at our website. It's lwtears.com, and you can visit our distant learning pages. Those have a lot of free resources for you. As a matter of fact, we've made some of our best resources available free for you to go and try out during this time. And we've also compiled some of the best resources from leading experts in education. So go to our website and check those out. Now, let's see. We've got somebody asking here about Andrea, talking about a 4-year-old that wants to hold everything with both hands. Andrea, when they're 4 and 5, we want to start training their hands. And so you want to start having them color and choose a hand and start working on developing that handedness. Now, for those of you that are working with children that have grip problems, pretty certain that almost every home has one of these in it, right? This is a crayon. So you have a crayon in your house for them to color, draw, write with. Even older kids will benefit from coloring as well. So no, depending on your age of your student that you're working with at home, this is going to be a great activity for you. Take your crayons and think about how you can hold it. You can hold it like this. You can put all your fingers up like this. I can wrap fingers around like this. But watch what I'm going to do. Now, don't do this in front of your kids. Wait till they go to bed tonight and go do this. But don't do it in front of them. I'm just going to break this crayon in half. Now I have a much smaller piece of crayon, and look what I can only do is hold it with my fingertips. So Andrea, I want you to start doing coloring and drawing activities with your child, but make sure that they only have broken pieces of crayon available to them. You can go gather up the old crayons, you can use the new ones, it's up to you, but I can no longer hold it with this hand. And start looking at their handedness and seeing which hand they prefer. When they're eating a snack, give them a zippered item and watch them like a jacket or even a backpack, put something inside and have them pull it out. Watch which hand moves the zipper and which one holds on to the backpack. Give them an applesauce or a yogurt to eat, and which hand is the one that's holding the container and which one is the spoon. And the one that's holding the spoon, the one that grabs the zipper and moves it, is going to be their more skilled hand. And start having them color with a little piece of broken crayon. So this is a really nice tip that you guys can go put into practice right now with all of your kids. And I'm sure that you have some of those tools available. We have these really nice little flip crayons that are just the right size for little hands. And those are something that you might want to look at in the future. But for right now, that's a good tip for you guys. All right, let's see. One last thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about cursive. Somebody was asking here about cursive when I was scrolling through. If you're just joining us now, we have a live session today called Ask an OT. We plan to go ahead and do these broadcasts more frequently. So if you have questions, make sure that you post them in the comment box, because we're going to be coming back to you with more content and answering your questions. And we would love to have you back with us in the future, so make sure you're putting your comments. So the last one I had was about cursive and how to reinforce other practice for cursive. They were asking about how can I help, and this goes for cursive, it also goes for print. It could be for numbers and number formations. Something that probably most of you have in your homes right now are shoe boxes or baking pans. You can get the lid of a shoebox or a shallow baking pan, and if you have some dry rice or dry beans, you can use salt, you can use shaving cream, you can use thick lotions. If you have some lotions in your home, you can spread those in there. And you can do tracing activities with cursive. If you go on our website to our distant learning page, you can get free access to some of our teaching tools for print and for cursive. And you'll be able to show your students some live demonstrations of how to form letters and numbers in cursive letters correctly. And then they could imitate those by tracing those either in the rice or in the beans or in the shaving cream. And that would be a fun activity for them to be able to do right on the spot and right in your home. All right, so I think that pretty much wraps it up. And have fun with your kids. Don't forget about those movement breaks. Don't forget that schedule, and don't forget to use your timer. Have a good night, everybody. Thank you for being with us.